Hey everyone, happy Gen Lyme Day. Thank you for hanging with us today. I hope you're having a great day. We're doing a little roundtable here with the hosts from our meetups that go under the supporters umbrella. I'm Haley. I host the parents meetup on the first Monday of every month. We have Debra and Iain who host the partners meetup on the second Monday of every month. And we have Alex, who hosts the supporters meetup on the third Tuesday of every month. And we are missing Megan. She couldn't be here today, but she also supports the supporters meetup, and just want to shout her out because she's amazing and we love her very much. So with that being said, we're just going to go around and talk about our meetups, and we will start with just the general question of why do you host your meetup? So Debra and Iain, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. I'm Iain, and I enjoy hosting our meeting because I like to give the supporters a chance to have a voice and talk to other supporters about their relationships and their life with Lyme.
And I'm Debra. I think that the partners meetup is really interesting. I host some other meetups during the month, or I fill in for other people, but the supporters meetup is interesting, I think, because I think that there's a lot of spaces that that supporters in whatever sense like aren't allowed to have like their own emotional baggage that like comes along with this like crazy illness. And so it's really nice having a place where like a partner cannot, be like a cheerleader or be positive or whatever. They can just be whatever they need to be or ask any questions that they have.
That's awesome. Alex, how about you?
So Megan and I actually decided to co-host this meetup together because we have a friend who really wanted to join in on a meetup, but the partners meetup was not appropriate since she was just a friend. I shouldn't say just a friend. Our friends are amazing and supportive of them. And we were discussing it on a general patient call, and I said, Megan, you should host that. And she said, I'll host it if you help me with it. So it was born very organically through the love for our friends. And we know that they deserve all the support that patients get as well, since they have supported us through so much. So we're really happy that we created that.
And you guys all do such a great job too. And I'll just add that I also kind of organically started the parents meetup because I am very blessed to have two very supportive parents, which you don't see often, I would say, in the Generation Lyme community or in the Lyme community in general. And when I was bedridden for many years, my mom was my caretaker, having no medical history at all. And my dad was just kind of figuring out how the heck to deal with it. And I saw their life fall apart just as mine was. And they also had no support, and their friends kind of trickled away, and it was just wild to see the mirroring. And my mom always gets mad at me and she's like, you're the one who went through it. We just were there to help you. But the people who love you and care and want to help really do go through hell as well. It's a different kind of hell, but it's a struggle. And I'm so happy we have you guys and these meetups can exist. Because they're so needed. So that being said, let's go to what's special about your meetup. You kind of covered this in the last question, but yeah, like why is your specific meetup needed in this world?
For the general supporters, everyone is welcome. So you can have coworkers, friends, spouses if they wanted to. So I think it's interesting to glean such different perspectives across the board in one group. And I think that makes our specific group pretty unique.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that what that the feedback that I've gotten from Iain, so Iain and I are relatively new to hosting the partners meetup, but I had gotten feedback from him before we were hosting that, like, one of the things that he finds so interesting about being at Lyme meetups is that, like, people say the same things, and some of the same things that we say are like kind of weird, like about like the electricity feeling that's going through our bodies or something like that, like things that like are that while like a partner or a supporter might take it face value, like they're like, I don't even know what that means. And I think that one thing that's really lovely about these meetups is that you have like people saying similar things. So like a couple of months ago, there was like a whole camaraderie type thing that happened with some folks talking about like, oh, wait, your partner talks about how the moon drives them crazy, like, oh wait, I had like, and just like making that connection. And so I think that is, I think it that like what I've heard from Iain is like that's felt really important to just like have somebody else who's kind of like hearing similar things and then like integrating and synthesizing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Debra's never needed validation for illness, but when you hear the things that are talked about, they're off the wall things, and it definitely is like, oh wow. I mean, not everyone's making that up. Like, they're not making it up. It's just like, it's very interesting, and I think our meetup is pretty interesting. We think it has a lot of value because historically in our meetups we have someone from other parts of the world at it. We've had someone from Ukraine, we had someone from Italy, and the East Coast, all in one meeting, and it's like, wow. So anyways, I find that we have a very beautiful group of people that love their people and want to figure out how to help them more.
Yeah. I love when there's people all over the world in one room. It's such a cool feeling, right?
Way cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. I also love, like, in our normal meetups with Lyme patients, I say normal, in our weekly meetups with Lyme patients, when a new person comes on, you see like their eyes light up when they hear other people saying, Iain, like you were saying, all this weird stuff that happens in our bodies and our worlds. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this in your meetups, but for the parents meetup, the same thing happens with parents. Like this past month, we had a couple new people on, and going through the shares, a few regulars were talking about their kids, and our theme of the month this month is compassion. So they were talking about how compassion has gotten hard for having passion for other people, but for people with illnesses, it's gotten a lot more intense. And just kind of how they live their lives. And the new parents were like, oh my God, this happens to you guys too. Like my kid isn't the only one who had to drop out of school, and like you're stressed out too, and you're trying to be strong for your kid too, and trying to hide all your emotions. So it's really cool to see the community form for me outside of the direct Lyme patients. And like now we're having that bigger impact of being able to help the people who want to help us. I just think that's really cool. Do you guys have similar experiences in your meetups?
Yeah, I'd say that like the people that come that are new and come to a meetup, they're like usually pretty blown away. Like they're like, it was their first meetup and they're like, I intend to be back because I heard, this, and this. So yeah.
Yeah,
And
I remember one time, just as an example, I heard a patient's sister come on our call, and something up, I think it was like a cousin or a family member, someone else said something that she connected with. And it seemed to validate her experience as a Lyme patient supporter. And just watching that transpire in a Zoom meeting because of a meeting I was hosting, just it felt incredible. It felt like I was giving back to the people that have given us so much, because I know validation, especially with Lyme, is really, really important. So it was really nice to see that.
yeah. And Iain, not to put you on the spot, but kind of to put you on the spot, you're a non-Lyme patient. And you guys, I know you guys attended the partners meetups before you started hosting. Can you talk a little bit about why you went on a monthly basis and like the effect it had on you?
Sure. Yeah. I when Debra and I started dating, she had this, Generation Lyme support group, and had these people that were in her pocket that she would, bounce questions off of, or, she was in these, and I'm like, wow. I remember asking her, like, is there a spot for me to learn more, to listen in? And yeah, so that's why I started going to the supporters meetup. And yeah, I like going to the other meetups. I just found out that there's a men's meetup, and it's for not just men with Lyme, but people that are affected by Lyme, so they're partners. So I intend to check out that meeting.
I
Awesome.
think that, like, similar to what you were saying about like validating the experience, like Alex, you were mentioning it, and Haley also, like you both said things that were like, somebody said something and somebody else was like, oh yeah, that matches the experience that I've had. I think that I felt like I was getting support for the parts of my life, well, for some of the parts of my life that are affected by this chronic illness. And so I like suggested to him, because I mean, I think I mostly like was like, you might need support, but I think that that's like kind of a hard thing to say to somebody. Like, I think that you don't, it's easier to know how you need support from people who are close to you than how you need support from like strangers on the internet. But I think that like you have been able to find that. Yeah. And I didn't go, I mean, a patient is totally welcome at the partners meetup. And like, I've been to more partners meetups since hosting than I had beforehand. I think we went to the first one together.
Yeah,
and
and
that
I
was it.
started
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
I just like listening to you guys. Oh man.
Yeah.
The other thing that's cool is we're starting to see communities building outside of our meetups too. We know that the Lyme patients have friendships outside of our meetups now. I have so many more friends than I did before Generation Lyme was created. Like, we created Generation Lyme because we wanted a community, and we have one now. But even like during the parents meetup, sometimes people will say like, oh yeah, when we were talking the other day to each other, and I'll be like, oh my God, you guys talk offline. And I know like my parents occasionally make it to the parents meetup. And I know like they've talked to some of the other participants, and it's so nice to see connections happening, because it's so valuable. And feel free to add on to any of this, but just the fact that for me, hosting the parents meetup. I'm not a parent. Well, I'm a parent of a cat, but and plants, but no, not a human parent. But part of my heart heals a little every month when I host these meetups, because it reminds me that people do care about our community, and they want to help. They just simply don't know how. And that's what our meetups are helping them do, is helping them figure out what they need and how they can help, directly and indirectly in our community.
I totally agree with you. And I don't think there's any such thing as too much support. So the more that we're stronger together. True.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I'd say that maybe the thing that happens more often than not is like, so this is only once a month.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I said, well, like one guy in particular, I'm like, well, if you get a few more people coming and there's a want and need for it, maybe something else will come up, like, so yeah, there's I feel like people are still learning about it, but like I think that it's going to become more and more important.
I also think like something that we haven't touched on yet in this conversation is just like the misinformation and about Lyme and like what mainstream medicine says versus not. And then there's like forums online and Reddits and Facebook groups, and like there's just so much information and it's so confusing and it doesn't make any sense. And like to most people in their life experiences, they don't, it's not understandable. And it's like, it's also like really hard as a patient to be like, let me try and explain this to you, because you're like, I don't get it. I don't really understand this is my personal feeling. It's like, I don't get it. I don't really understand the history of it. Like I've heard it or I've read it a couple of times, but it's like, for the most part, like that's not like, I'm just trying to work within what's happening and not really understand that. And so that I think that's hard to explain to other people. And I think that like that makes it more valuable for folks to come together, because they're then able to like, again, like it's not necessarily like needing the validation, but also like like almost more like corroboration. I think that
Collaboration.
no, I was saying the word I meant to say. Like corroborating like the story, being like, yeah, that's what's happening. I think the word is corroborate. Now oh wow, this is recorded forever.
It's going to be on the internet forever. Oh, man. That's such a good point, Debra. Thank you for bringing that up, because it's true. Like we, again, as patients, we all know about that and we get called crazy all the time, but I can only imagine as supporters, and Iain, maybe you can say this is right or wrong or speak to this a little. If you're supporting someone who's quote unquote crazy or making stuff up in the Western medical world, that must be kind of hard in our society.
It can be pretty confusing. For instance, recently Debra she got a parking placard, and she got a permanent one this time, and the doctor was like, well, it's because you have fibromyalgia and that might not go away, something like that. But so yeah, it's a difficult world, and there isn't a lot of it's hard to understand where doctors don't want to listen to what's actually happening. And then like if they would just be a part of this group and listen to the conversations, they would know so much more.
Open invitation, by the way. Anyone's welcome. Oh man. All right. Anything to add before we wrap up?
I think that a lot of the time, both on patients meetings and on support persons meetings, I hear people say like that they've had it in their calendar for a while, or they've been thinking about going for a while. There are like some like amazing, stupendous people who like enter into all of our patients' lives and like want to go immediately. And that's really neat. But I think most people like drag their feet for a while before they go, or they're nervous to go. So like, I think that I would just say like, feel free to try it. All the different meetings are like a little bit different. So like, if it doesn't feel totally right to be like in one that's hosted by us, like try one that's hosted by Alex, or try one that's hosted by Haley, or try a different, like try the burning questions one, or whatever makes sense for you to try. And like, you don't have to have your camera on. You don't have to say anything. You can just like be a fly on the wall for the entire meeting. And that's okay. You can be driving home and be like listening to this meeting if you're interested in it. Like, just I feel like it's hard to like do things for ourselves. And I think that it's important for support people to also like do things for themselves like that. And yeah, maybe it's not what you need, but maybe it's exactly what you need. So it's worth checking out. It's just a waste of an hour.
I think
Or a
it's
gift
really,
of an hour.
it's really important for me to hear these life stories to help me work through understanding Debra's life and what Lyme is life for both of us. And so, yeah.
I agree with all of that, especially just dialing in to listen. A lot of the times I feel too sick to participate. And I think like, oh, I don't want to just check in and not say anything. But every time I do, I feel better listening to other people's Lyme experiences. And I don't feel weird. I always expect to feel weird calling in and not saying anything. But everyone is so welcoming. It's all good. If you need the support, if you just want to hear other people going through what you're going through, it really makes a difference.
Yeah, well said, Alex. We want people to come even if they don't want to have their video camera on or voice. Like, come. You're very welcome. Yeah, everyone does it. Everyone takes a turn doing that. So please come anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. And like if you're in bed, you can't sit up. We don't care. We really don't care. We've all been there too. All right. Well, just one last shout out to supporters in general. Without you, our lives are even harder than they already are. So we really appreciate you. And it takes a really special person to stand by people who are struggling, no matter what they're struggling with. So yeah, if you're listening and you're a supporter, give yourself a pat on the back. If you're listening and you're a Lyme patient and a supporter, automatically, basically, give yourself a pat on the back or a hug or whatever self-care you need to do. We love you guys. Like we all said, everyone is welcome to these meetups. A lot of times at the parents meetup, a parent will come with the patient the first time, just to get out any nerves, and then they'll come by themselves from then on. And I know that happens in the supporters and the partners meetups as well. So don't be shy. It's totally no pressure. Just come. It's an awesome place. And we have the best people in this community, including the three of you and Megan. So thank you guys so much for sharing everything and being willing to tell people why these meetups are so needed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Please come and join us.
Happy Gen Lyme Day.
Yeah.
Happy Gen Lyme Day, everyone.
Happy Gen
We'll see you at the next event.